Hello everybody, this is the Copyright Activist, and for this article that I found, it was about the how to follow the dark money, or exactly how the dirty history of secret spending, PACs going wild, and our 4 decade, in actuality, probably 140 years of political campaign finance law came to be as it is. This gives a great historical perspective, and as you can see from just Bill Clinton, many of people have had to battle with campaign finance reform, as well as people that want to just deregulate and have as much money going into the into political campaigns as possible. Um, Now, I'll probably be doing a bigger video about this later on, but this is a great article just to get you started in regards to the last 4 decades. Now, for Nixon land, I won't be talking too much about that because as I've recently studied in Watergate, The Hidden History by Lamar Waldron, um, Nixon had plenty of campaign money going into his creep. But just to give you an overview here, April 5th of 1972, Littke was hand delivering money, $100,000, to a Mexican businessman named Jose Diaz de Leon. So what he did was he had cash and checks totaling $700,000. But this went to the Committee for the Re-election of the President, or CREEP, that wanted to beat the deadline to disclose that finance. Of course, he had $89,000 in cash, $11,000. Ooh, I said that wrong. $89,000 in checks, $11,000 in cash. And if anybody has been following campaign finance reform at all, the fact is that every time you have campaign finance, it's going to essentially cause a scandal. But of course, Nixon himself wanted to live large. He had plenty of slush funds, and even when he was vice president of the United States under Eisenhower, he had been caught red-handed with a slush fund, and he had a famous checkers speech, which you can see right now. Of course, if you look at exactly where that checkers speech came from, it actually came and was inspired by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his Fala speech, which of course you can also watch. Compare and contrast how exactly Nixon used FDR for his own purposes.
These Republican leaders have not been content with attacks on me, or on my wife, or on my sons. No, not content with that. They now include my little dog, Fala.
One other thing I probably should tell you, because if I don't, they'll probably be saying this about me, too. We did get something, a gift, after the election. A man down in Texas heard Pat on the radio mention the fact that our two youngsters would like to have a dog. And believe it or not, the day before we left on this campaign trip, we got a message from the Union Station in Baltimore saying they had a package for us. We went down to get it. You know what it was? It was a little Cocker Spaniel dog in a crate that he'd sent all the way from Texas. Black and white, spotted. And our little girl, Tricia, the 6-year-old, named it Checkers. And you know, the kids, like all kids, love the dog. And I just want to say this right now, that regardless of what they say about it, we're going to keep it.
If you want to learn more, of course, you can look into my video in regards to Watergate, where he was essentially bribed into taking money to let go of Jimmy Hoffa, and that's a topic entirely by itself. The good thing was that when Bernard Barker, the CIA operative, went into Watergate along with 5 other men who were all either retired CIA ops or active CIA operatives, then that essentially lit the fuse for the biggest political scandal in modern American history. Without further ado, with Watergate as the backdrop, you can see exactly where plenty of people needed to study the issue of campaign finance. As I said, Watergate has a lot more that I go into detail later on, but for this, you can also look into the Tillman Act, which is what the our current Supreme Court is going to be focusing on in regards to trying to give money directly to politicians to curry their own favor by saying that it's corporate speech. Of course, Teddy Roosevelt got on his knees and essentially he was given $48,000 or $1.25 million to the Republicans. But Teddy Roosevelt ran as a trust buster, but he also signed into law the 1907 Tillman Act, which has been in place for over 100 years. People, if you want to see what the people are that are fighting against this law or fighting for this law, that's going to be 73-year-old Fred Wertheimer, who is currently the head of Democracy 21. Now, mostly conservatives and libertarians consider laws regulating political money an assault on free markets and free speech. Now, libertarians in general, I'll have to get into later exactly why they believe in corporate speech, so be prepared for that video as well. But essentially, both parties want to deregulate campaign finance, knocking down spending and giving limits, and roll back disclosure laws. Mitch McConnell, will learn about him today, as well as James Bopp Jr., which I actually go into detail in another video. Another new person would be Brad Smith, the former FEC commissioner, who chairs the Center for Competitive Politics, who fights campaign finance regulation. To learn about Fred Wertheimer, you have to understand that he came into being, or he was essentially employed. He was essentially employed after the Watergate scandal began to gain steam. What he would do was that he fought for the next 40 years for campaign finance laws. Now, on the right-hand side here, you can see the rising cost of the Oval Office, where you essentially see the varying prices from 1968 to 2012 in the different campaigns. Now, Obama versus Romney, the super PACs are going to be getting a lot of money, as well as the 504Cs. Unfortunately, it's going to be one of the most expensive campaigns ever. And Obama has done a brilliant strategy in focusing on Mitt Romney's tax returns. Now, for the most part, I won't be getting too much into Wertheimer, because the fact is, once you learn about Watergate, you essentially see that everything that happened goes on a schedule. When there's political outcry of any way, shape, or form, people want reform to make sure this doesn't happen again. And what Wertheimer did was he banned the hard money, and he had limits on campaign spending and donations, and created the Federal Election Commission, which the only thing that he couldn't do, let me see if I can find it. The only thing that he could not do, he couldn't get public financing. That's the only thing that, unfortunately, he could not do. And that would set up the PACs and everything else that came to being now. Now, another thing that happened here was Buckley v. Valeo, which reached the Supreme Court in September 1975. And of course, you can look at Watergate, but again, that's in another video. Buckley v. Valeo reached the Supreme Court in September 1975. Unfortunately, this was written by as many as 5 different justices, which upheld the law's contribution limits, its presidential public finance program, and disclosure provisions. It struck down the limit on spending or independent expenditures, money spent by individuals or outside groups, totally independent of campaigns. So, Buckley deemed political money a form of speech and sought to balance two interests: the First Amendment's free speech protections and what the justices termed corruption and the appearance of corruption. Unfortunately, we had that changed or expanded upon in Citizens United. Money given straight to candidates could corrupt, the court argued, but independent expenditures did not. Whoever did this obviously did not see anything about the Gilded Age, but that's another story for another time. So they essentially said that that money couldn't be limited. Now, one thing I should say about Buckley v. Valeo, because Nixon put into place one person by the name of Lewis Powell, we would not know about him and his campaign finance laws for quite some time. We wouldn't learn about the Lewis Powell memo until 2006. And if you want detailed information about that, you can look at my Lewis Powell memo and see it for yourself. So, with that in place, with Buckley in place, you would begin to have super PACs as well as unlimited third-party spending that would radically reshape the political playing field here in the United States. As Michael Toner says, Buckley is a seed that has sprouted 1,000 blossoms.